Are you on? Hello, is anybody on?
I'm on.
I can hear you, Joe.
Hear you, Joe. This is Brian. You're broken up, Joe, though. It's not clear like it was with Trinity and Marty.
Oh yeah, you're muffled.
Yeah, it's skipping like you got a bad connection.
Audio check. This is Dave.
I can hear you, Dave.
Thank you.
All right. We get everybody back. All right. We ready to go, Wes?
I believe so. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, we have everybody's here.
All right. Thanks, Wes. All right. I'll call our regular meeting to order, February 24th at 6 p.m. And Wes, let's see. We have no reportable action from closed session.
That's correct.
Sergeant Griffiths. Would you like to lead us in the pledge, since I see you right there?
Sure.
Like
If
on the
everybody
spot.
would like to. It's all right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Got to say, it's been 20 years since I've done that.
Didn't miss a beat.
Thank God.
All right, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, welcome tonight. Thanks for coming. Could you please do a roll call, please?
Amy, you're muted. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Amy, can you
No
hear
problem.
us? If you can, you're muted right now.
Mr. Mayor, you can also note for the record that all council members are present.
All right, we'll go with that. I do see everybody. Amy's sending some public comments in right now. Hi, Amy. I'll,
Sean, I believe these are also for an agenda item later in tonight's agenda.
right.
Do you guys
All right.
hear me? This is Joe.
Yes, Joe,
Okay, thank you.
we can hear you. All right. I'll note for the record that all council members are present tonight. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda order?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay.
All right, excellent. Madam Clerk, can you do a roll call?
Yes, I just want to apologize really quick. I'm sorry, I had my sound off, so I didn't know you guys had started.
No problem.
So, Councilmember Mendoza,
Present.
Ackerman,
Present.
and I think I'm taking the roll call on the vote of approving the agenda order.
We noted for the record that all council members,
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, yes.
So Marnie, it's a yes, no?
Oh, yes.
Perfect. Ackerman,
Yes, present.
Thank you. Burris,
Yes.
Pcwa,
Yes.
Mayor Lumen.
Yes. All right, thank you. Move on to agency reports. Sergeant Griffiths.
Good evening, council and members of the public. For the sheriff's office over the last month, there hasn't been any real major crimes of note or anything that I would think that the city would need to be concerned about. We are aware of a couple of new folks downtown, a couple of Facebook posts regarding those folks, but we've been out there contacting, talking to them, trying to provide them with services. Other than that, I really don't have anything else to report. Anybody have any questions for me?
No, just a general comment. This is David Ackerman. Yeah, some of those new folks that have been around town, one or two of them in particular, I definitely see them just kind of roaming neighborhoods and just kind of staring at houses and stuff. So thank you for approaching them and just kind of finding out their story.
Yeah, I've talked to them myself on 2 separate occasions, including today. And I've showed them some of the posts, kind of told them what's going on and trying to offer them services and any other locations that we might be able to help them get to.
Cool.
We appreciate that.
No problem.
Any other questions, comments? No? All right, thank you, Sergeant Griffith.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have a representative from CHP on tonight? Did Chris make it? I didn't see him on that.
Chris had to teach a class tonight.
All right. Great. Then we can move on to the Colfax Fire Department, Placer County Fire Chief Egan.
Good evening, council, members of the audience. Brian Egan, Battalion Chief, CAL FIRE, Placer County Fire Department, the Colfax Alta Battalion, and representative for the city of Colfax Volunteer Fire Department. So for this evening, our call volume over the last couple of weeks has been down, much like it was last February when COVID, when the initial stay-at-home orders and the things that were concerning people caused our call volumes to drop off. Same time frame. I don't believe it has anything to do with COVID. I think it's just we're a month away from the holidays or a month out of the holidays, and I think people finally settled down from their hunkering in place over the holidays, and with the nice weather that we've had over the last week and a half or so, I think it's just quieted down somewhat. From the last time we talked, or probably it was for the year report, we've had 2 of our volunteers resign over the last couple of weeks. Both of them were support volunteers. They weren't trained yet to be full-fledged firefighters. Both of them citing conflict of scheduling, both with their work and their family, which is a common theme for volunteers. Really, United States wide, the amount of time that volunteers have to spend training and attending events and calls and with the other things that their families and their careers require, it's difficult to be able to juggle all those things. But the 6 volunteers that we have currently on the roster are all qualified firefighters, so they can all do what we would consider the most dangerous activities, the entry into an immediate dangers to life and health environment. And so that's actually in the past 3 years, this will be the first time that we've actually had a full roster of qualified firefighters. I think I mentioned this the last council meeting, but I just wanted to make sure everyone knew Engine 37 is back in service. That's our Type 1 fire engine. It was out of service for a better portion of a month right after the first of the year with a pump shift issue. And we got it back actually the afternoon that we had the working group meeting or the workshop meeting on the fire services for the community. At the same time, we sent Rescue 36 in, and to my knowledge, it's still out of service at the shop. It has an electrical problem related to its airbag sensors, and we weren't sure if it has something to do with the road damage that occurred a few months back. And so we're waiting to hear from them. Unfortunately, though, I have not heard on either case what the final financial outcome was, to know how much more money we've spent on automotive for the year. This past Friday evening, myself, Chief Rufinaud, and Chief Estes were invited by the Colfax Volunteer Firefighters Association Board to meet with them and discuss not only the fire protection agreement in the city and the things that we've talked about with that coming due in June, but also talked about what we've presented to both the county and the city as far as a sustainable long-term solution to fire services in the community of Colfax. It was a good 2.5 hour long meeting with the interaction of all the members and a list of questions that Chief Estes provided answers for that. So that went real well. And then kind of on a regional note, so over the last several days within the unit, we've had a number of debris burn escapes. And in fact, today was a no burn day because of the wind, the north wind event that we were seeing through a portion of the unit. This time of the year, burning permits are not required. All the landowner or the responsible party is required to do is call their local air pollution control district. For us, it's Placer County, and determine if it's a permissive burn day. They change the recorder every morning just before 8 o'clock, and that message is good for 24 hours. The problem is that if you call at 8 o'clock in the morning and you go out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a day like today can occur and will shut burning off because of a wind event. And so we encourage our residents to do is when you're stepping outside to go light your pile, you make that phone call one last time just to make sure nothing's changed. The problem that we're dealing with right now is it's the end of February, and we're now midway through about a 2-week span of a dry spell, and we're dealing with a number of debris burns that are escaping into leaf litter and annual grasses left over from last fire season. I guess it was yesterday, they had about 1.25 acres of vegetation down off Iowa Hill Road. There was a debris burn that escaped today. There was a fire over in Nevada County that was a couple of acres, and they had a couple of acres earlier in the week. So asking everyone, get out there, do the defensible space work that we want you to do. Make your homes as safe as possible when the weather's good, but just remember that any of your burn piles, you are responsible for it. If they escape your control and if the fire department has to respond and take action, you can be held liable for any of those suppression costs. And if that fire leaves your property, you can be held liable for any damages. So it's the perfect time of year to be out doing this kind of stuff. You just got to keep in mind that we're not experiencing another wet winter like we were hoping. And there's always that potential for something to escape. So with that, if there's no questions, that would be in the report.
No questions? All right. Thank you, Chief Egan. And I do want to comment and say the membership did very much, the association membership did very much appreciate getting the chance to sit down with Chief Estes and get to hear the future plans.
Excellent.
Thank you
That's
again.
excellent. We heard from a couple of the members afterwards, and they were very thankful as well. So that's important that we have this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
You bet. Thanks. And I'll talk to you later this evening.
Yep. All right. Do we have any other representatives from the Sierra Vista Center or the chamber that might want to, that are on right now that might want to speak? Wes, do you know?
Mr. Mayor, Sally said she was not going to be on for this meeting, and I'm not aware of any other nonprofits that want to speak tonight.
Wes, Green Machine did want to make a comment tonight, but unfortunately their representative is not available. So I was asked if I could please share some comments from the Green Machine. Really quick, as everyone knows, later in March, Green Machine's planning to have their annual crab feed. They're going to be doing a drive-through crab feed. You can purchase tickets online. But Green Machine specifically wanted to come to council tonight to request a $1,000 donation for their event. Because again, Green Machine supports so many different facets in our community, not just the 3rd of July, but they also support the Colfax Junior Falcons and the ski team and the trap team and, the Colfax skate park. And, they've got another opportunity that's coming up really soon here. But as of right now, there's still a non-disclosure agreement in place. So until that's finalized, they can't come forward with their exciting announcement. But the long and short of it is, they're hurting for money with this pandemic. And our previous council policy was that, when we get these requests from the nonprofits for special events, that we would entertain a $1,000 donation, and they would basically like to make that request this evening.
That would need to go on a future agenda for discussion by the council.
Yeah, and I did let them know that, but their hope is that we can get that on the March 1st agenda. So they wanted council to be aware, just because their crab feed is coming up at the end of March. And so they want everybody to just be aware that this is something that's time sensitive.
I think we can do that. Thanks, Trinity.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, that sounds like that's the end of the agency reports. We don't have any presentations tonight, no public hearings. Item 6 is the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are routine in nature, will be approved with one blanket motion and a council vote. Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I would like to pull item 6C for discussion on a piece.
Okay,
Otherwise, I'll motion to approve everything but 6C.
all right. Well, we can pull the item for discussion now and then go ahead and do the full approval if you want.
Yep.
All right. Go ahead, Joe.
So motion to approve consent calendar with the exception of 6C.
Okay. So,
I'll second.
okay. Madam Clerk, will you do a roll call?
Councilmember Mendoza. Stuck on mute.
There you go.
Yes, sorry.
No problem.
I saw I left it on that time. Want to get to this.
Did I get Ackerman?
Aye.
Burris?
Aye.
Petula?
Aye.
Mayor Loman?
Aye. All right. Joe, go ahead with your discussion for 6C.
So back on, I just have one clarification thing here that might help everybody. If you can flip to the maps on page 27 and 28. And Wes, could you just take a minute to explain that? Because I think that's a pretty significant thing that's in there.
Sure. The liner map, which you see here, I believe, and the discussions from the city engineer, this is the topography where we did the plate piles in the project, where we believe the original fissure limits were. We then executed those fissure limits with the plate piles, added additional plate piles at the end of the limits once we discovered that the fissures extended beyond the limits. So what we need to do next is do an investigative analysis of how far the limits are on those fissures to determine what the scope of the project will be in the future. And again, I want to point out that this is covered by the city's insurance, the cost.
Yep. Yeah. So on that map on the left side of the screen up there, can you just, for everybody, just highlight what the fissure is?
So the fissure is basically a crack in the surface of the soil. Sometimes they go very shallow, sometimes they go very deep. This particular crack that was at the top of the deck where the road was was 150 feet long, and in some points went almost 6 foot deep, which meant that the hillside was pulling away and getting ready to slough down to the bottom of the pond, which was would have created the buildup underneath the liner and compromised the liner, possibly damaging it, and then the pond water getting into the groundwater, which would have created us the having a violation on there. The additional fissures that you see, you look at the lines on the document on the left, you'll see there's a line kind of going diagonal across there. That's kind of a marking of where we saw the additional fissures inside the slope face that was previously covered up by the liner. That again, what we discovered when we peeled the liner back. We need to again determine to what extent those cracks go and what the next steps are. It may be monitored, for future sloughing to see if we need to do anything, but we won't know until we do this portion of it. That
Yeah,
cover
so-
what you're looking for, Joe?
Yep, and so on this diagram, there's basically 4 cracks between the 2 of them that were found, right? That's the way I read this. Is that correct?
Yes, there's 4 cracks. The initial one is up on that you can see on the road surface on the very top of the chart. And the others, again, were kind of a little more subtle down in the slope face itself underneath the liner.
Yep, and these were detected visually or by ground penetrating radar, or how were they detected?
The initially everything was it was all visual on there.
Okay.
Now to figure out the limits of the next layer, instead of peeling all the liner back, which would be very costly, we're going to be doing ground penetrating radar to determine the limits of the project scope outside of phase 1, which would be considered phase 2.
Yeah, and the reason I just wanted you to talk about it is this is important to show us being proactive, and it's also important to know that this is covered by the insurance.
Excellent.
Okay, so with that, I'll make a motion to approve item 6C.
I'll second that. Madam Clerk, could you take a roll, please?
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Ackerman,
Aye.
Burris,
Hi.
Petula,
Aye.
and Mayor Loman.
Aye. Thank you. All right. Move on to item 7, public comment. Seems like we had quite a bit of public comment. I'm not sure if it was all for particular items on the agenda.
I did have
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just have a clarification question for Mick and how we should handle this, because it seems that the items that brought most of the public comment were for item, let's see here, item 9D, or sorry, 9C. However, I remember that we did close the public hearing for that particular item. So if Mick could clarify if we take public comment for that item, or if we should take those comments during the public comment section of the agenda.
It's an item that is on the agenda, so the public comments should be made at the time the agenda item comes up.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I was asking for any public comment for items not on the agenda. If we have any of that, Wes or Shanna or Amy. Do you know if we have any general public comment?
Jenna, are you seeing any public comment?
I don't have anything on Facebook or on Zoom.
Okay,
Do not either.
great. And nothing emailed that wasn't particular to an agenda item. Cool.
The only emails I have, I believe, are all related to the same item.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Yeah. All right. No public comment, then we'll move on to item 8. Committee reports and informational items, item 8A. Marnie, do you want to start us off?
Yes, I will start us off by saying that I have nothing to report. I guess you're more in tune with the vaccines, because it seems like the pharmacy where we're going to put it is not going to be doing it at this time. So you can report out on what you know on your mayor calls.
All right. Great. Thanks, Marty. David?
Attended my first Pioneer meeting last Thursday, and it's a whole new world, but it was interesting. So that's all I have.
All right, great. Glad you got to kick it off right. Joe?
Yeah, so I got a number of different items. I'm going to cover some of the reports under the council business section when we get to that discussion down there. But just an update, Project Go, which is the other one that I'm involved with, that we got rotated out for this year. So there's no assignment for that piece for this year coming up. That's all I have.
All right, great, thanks. Trinity?
So I did have meetings with the Air Pollution Control District, SACOG, and the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency since our last meeting. At this time, I don't have any reportable action that, would be of specific interest to Colfax. Have had several meetings with local nonprofits, just encouraging people to apply for the Colfax Cares grant funding, especially since we have that round for the nonprofits right now. So just working on that and then making sure that we just have some kind of voice for what's going on recently. We do have 2 board positions that are currently still open for the Sierra Vista Center. They are asking for people that are going to be really involved with the community and help them basically get more volunteers and more young people involved was really what they were hoping for. And then Green Machine, as I mentioned earlier, they've got their crab feed coming up and encouraging people to buy tickets. And that is pretty much what I've got for tonight.
Great. Thanks, Trinity. I don't have too much to report. I've been on the, local county call and was on the state and federal call for the COVID task force stuff. Still unsure about vaccine availability. Right now, they're working with several larger pharmacies and still working with hospitals. The last they were talking, it sounds like they're hoping for sometime in June to start vaccinating the general public, maybe by the end of summer. And right now they're still keeping it for healthcare workers and people 65 and older for the most part. Tomorrow night is the Fire Safe Council meeting, the Placer Sierra Fire Safe Council meeting. It'll be available on Zoom. That information is posted on the county website and also available on our Facebook page. That's all I had. Wes, if you want to go ahead and give your update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to expand on Mayor Pro Tem Burris's comments on the Colfax Cares. We opened up the Cares for a week for the businesses to apply. We received 9 business applications. We still need to vet those applications out, who qualifies, who don't. We only received a couple of nonprofit applications, so staff opened up the application process for the nonprofits for an additional week. Since then, we received 2 additional nonprofits interest, the solicitation, and we also reached out to all the nonprofits in the area to make sure that they were all aware of the funding possibility. So we encourage all the nonprofits to put in an application. The remaining value left over will be split up equally amongst the volunteer nonprofits on there, and the application process closes this Friday. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you, Wes. All right, we'll move on to item 9A, under council business, the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget review. Lori, thanks for being here tonight.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, City Council, and you're right. It's in accordance with our city policy. We have a mid-year review of the city's financial activities, and specifically the report tonight is on operating revenues and expenses. We completed a detailed review of the current fiscal year for all funds and departments. We had, a good 6 months worth of data through December to use to look, to see where we're at on things. And then just based on the current activities and things we know going on in the city, we've come up with a projection for the rest of the year. I'm going to draw your attention to page 39, which I'll call the fund summary report. And on this report is an overview of the analysis. So down the side, you have all the different funds and departments of the city operations. The first set of columns there is the revenue. And the first column, and that is what we're currently projecting for the end of the year. The middle column's the adopted budget, and then the last column is the difference between the two. Then you have the same thing next to that for the expenses. And then off to the far right is the net change in the fund balance, which is just your revenues less expenses. So that's all summarized by fund and by fund type, and to all the way down to the bottom for total operations for the city.
Laurie, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do we have a chart like this that also shows compared to prior years?
I could pull out prior years. I don't have it for this evening, no.
Yeah, I would think in the future, it would be nice to show like the projected revenue column actuals of what it was last year, and same way with expenses, just as a reference. But this looks pretty good.
All right, so we went through specifically every line item within the budget, but I wanted to highlight the areas where the where I'd say the material changes were made on line items. So we did receive in January our first Peter allocation from Placer County for our property tax revenues and our motor vehicle fees. And from that, I can project that we're going to come in a little bit higher than we had projected in the adopted budget. Also, our sales tax revenue, it looks like we're going to come in about 10% higher than what we've projected. If you recall, when we went into the budget process this past year, we had just kind of entered the COVID period. We had a lot of data. We had information from HDL that told us, their projections, and we went even a little bit more conservative. I believe we're going to beat that forecast, and maybe even by a little bit more showing here, but since we're only halfway through the year and we really don't know the impact, I've estimated about a 10% increase over the adopted budget. Some other changes in revenue that we're forecasting are from our other government agencies. PCTPA reduced the allocations for this year, again, based on because that's sales tax revenue. We have reduced gas tax allocations. We do have an increase in our COPS grant. We've gotten this increase for the last couple of years. It's not something that can be projected, but when can you still hear me? I'm getting weird messages. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, sorry, my computer came up saying my internet was not working. We've gotten this additional funding on the COPS grant for the last several years. Like I said, it's something that we can't predict, but we are getting about $56,000 more than that for the year. It's a $100,000 grant we get, so that's a pretty substantial increase. We are looking at a decrease in our life interest rates, which has resulting in a decrease in our interest earnings. COVID restrictions have had an impact on activities overall on our revenues, such as recreation fees and expenses. We haven't been doing any of the outside training, conferences, travel. So there's been some reduction in projected actuals in those areas. We've also had some position vacancies this year, specifically the community services director, the chief plant operator, and the sewer operator 2 positions. And that's all resulted in lower than anticipated personnel costs, but those are also offset because we've had to rely more on professional services. particularly in our engineering services and professional services for the sewer operations. We have had increased legal services over our adopted budget for an ongoing lawsuit and other city legal issues. We had some activities that were not in the original budget process. That's that we got COVID relief funds in, and then we projected obviously expenditures out of that. And also the activities related to the cannabis application and monitoring process. And then the last big item is that the budget for the sewer service charges included an increase in EDU billings due to new homes, and the coming on of those new homes has been delayed, so that's resulted in a reduced estimate for the fiscal year. So after page 39, there's 4 more pages, and that's the very detailed line items for the revenue and the different expense accounts. And with that, I'll open that portion up for questions.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions from council?
This is Joe. Nope.
Nope.
All right.
Thank you, Laura.
All right.
Thank you, Lori.
All right, so I'm just going to mention we'll be going, into this again here in a couple months as we adopted a 2-year budget, but we'll want to, take some of this information and look forward to next year and see if we need to make some amendments going in for that. We have some other activities coming up. We need to do our annual review of the accounting procedures, the review of our investment policy. We'll need to establish the GAN appropriation limit, and I'd like to hold a fraud and risk discussion, just kind of from an overall viewpoint. So we'll be getting those things on the calendar coming up. And with that, I would just recommend that you accept the mid-year budget report and the budget amendments for the fiscal year 2020-2021.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lori. If there aren't any other questions, can I get a motion to approve item 9A?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Ackerman,
Aye.
Burris,
Aye.
Pcwa,
Aye.
Mayor Logan.
Aye. All right, thanks, everybody. Okay, we'll move on to item 9B, the comprehensive fire services analysis. See, we have Chief Egan, Chief Rupnott, and Chief Estes on the line. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening.
And the floor is yours.
All right. So as a follow-up to our December 9th council meeting where we opened the initial discussion of the future, a holistic review and future of the fire department specific to its apparatus fleet. One of the things that was addressed was the replacement of engine 36, which is a 1982 GMC type 2 fire engine that's currently out of service mechanical and has been for quite some time. And the proposal was at that time and the direction from City Council was to seek funding sources and move forward with looking at purchasing water tender. Part of that direction was also to produce a review of the fleet and how it connected to not only the fire department, but more of what the council's had interest in is the ISO rating that the city currently has. And as we've talked in other meetings, the ISO rating that we currently have, the 4.4X, is in question as to its accuracy based on some information that we have uncovered after having some conversations with the ISO, one of the ISO raters, and we're going to be seeking to have that rescored. I don't believe that the material has been presented to the ISO yet. Is that true, Chief Estes?
That's correct.
And so I would estimate, though, from the date and time that material makes it to our ISO rater, we're probably looking at about a 2-month span of time to get a new reflection of what the ISO rating is. But given everything staying equal, the replacement or repair of that particular piece of equipment can have a negative impact on the ISO score. It counts towards the current score, and the city would have to address either of the three options that are presented that we can discuss later in the document. For a volunteer fire department, one of the largest liabilities is fleet maintenance, operation, upkeep, new purchasing, and replacement of. And it's a large fiscal impact that we really need to be able to justify what we want to do with our fleet. Given a small number of volunteers, not a large budget. In this past year, if I read Lori's report accurately, I believe that our fiscal impact to the city this year has been increased for maintenance from 13,500 to 25,000, because this past fiscal year we've had so many unexpected repairs and issues, and that's not including the two invoices that I spoke of earlier and the future annual maintenances that'll be due this coming spring before the next fiscal year. So we want to take a look and try to make the best decision we can for the city and make those recommendations for the city moving forward. So currently the city has an ISO rating of 4.4X, and again, as I spoke, that score may change for the better once we're rescored, but certainly that piece of apparatus is going to count in that. The options that are on the table for council's discussion tonight is to seek a cost estimate and then move forward with the repairs of engine 36. Again, a 1982 fire engine, it'll be 40 years old next year, has probably seen its life and needs to be put out to pasture. But that's an option for the city to take. Another option for the city would be to seek at replacing engine 36 with another fire engine, either a new or a used fire engine that would have the same rated pump capacity of 1,000 gallons per minute or more. And that would gain the city the points that they would potentially lose if we take engine 36 out of the fleet. And the third option is the replacement of engine 36 with a tactical water tender that has a rated pump the same or a larger capacity than engine 36. And that's what the current proposal and estimates that we've received from Rosenbauer would be for in that. There's a couple other points to bring up here. So currently engine 36 counts towards the city's ISO rating. And nothing's going to change that as long as that engine remains a piece of the fleet. The next annual review for ISO for the city will become or will start in the fall of 2024. So just judging by how much time we have where that loss of that piece of apparatus could potentially negatively impact the city score, we potentially wouldn't necessarily need to worry about that for another 3.5 years approximately. It takes about 18 months for a fire engine or a piece of apparatus to be built, so that would need to be taken into consideration if the council would want to move forward with that. That we're looking at about an 18-month build out for that piece of apparatus, and that's to have it here so that it can be reflected accurately on the score sheets for ISO at that time. So with that, if there's no questions from the fire department, I'll pass it off to Lori to talk about the financial part of it.
Chief Egan, I do have a quick question.
Yes.
When we're talking about our options between, repairing this piece of equipment, replacing this piece of equipment, or full on swapping it out with a water tender, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly, the difference between, repairing or replacing versus exchanging with a water tender, how does that impact our ISO rating? Would it keep it the same, or does changing out that piece of equipment from, the 1,000-gallon current pumping capacity to that other piece of equipment, does that change the rating in any which way that we need to be concerned about?
So it won't, the goal would be whatever the city would choose to do is we either get engine 36 back in service. So that gives us the points that it's currently counting towards the ISO rating, or we replace it with something that is pump capacity wise the same or greater, and it's the same configuration for the water tender. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I was asked to specifically do a financial analysis of the different financing options for purchasing new equipment, specifically the quote or cost proposal we had from Burton's Fire for the wet side tender with the total cost of about $377,000. And as we mentioned, I think back in December, the best way for the city to proceed on purchasing something like this would probably be to go through USDA. We'd probably be able to apply for some level of grant. They said that their grants are usually in the $30,000 to $50,000 range, but they said generally at the lower end of that range. And USDA also offers loans. Their current rates are 2.125%. Of course, that's subject to change. Payment terms are pretty flexible for over the life of the equipment, generally up to about 20 years. The application process for USDA is somewhat cumbersome. Would probably take 3 to 6 months to complete and get final approval, but it's not required that we have, it's not a requirement of the grant to get approval before contracting for any sort of equipment purchase. I also contacted Community Leasing Partners. They're somebody that we had gotten quotes from in the past. There's several other companies that I probably could have contacted. They're probably all within, somewhat of the same range as what we found in the past. They would be very flexible. Any of these financing companies, I think, would be. They provided a couple different financing options that are in the charts there. One where we'd make a down payment, one where we would make a larger down payment, and then over the different years, you can see the interest rates. Those interest rates are as of now, and if we wanted to lock in, we'd have to commit to now and actually start accruing interest at that point. But again, you don't have to, if you want to wait and see what the interest is later, you can do that. You don't have to do it all the way up until the purchase date. Down below that is the chart that was provided previously of the funds that are set aside currently for fire capital. And let's see the next page. Next page is just what was put in for capital expenditures for the fire department for this year, estimates, and just wanted to highlight that there were some other large things, the roof replacement for Fire Station 36 and the purchase of the SCBAs. That's sort of the financial side.
Thank you, Lori. Mr. Mayor, if I may, I think kind of what staff's looking for tonight is kind of some direction on how to proceed. If council wants to go visit the engine repair, comparable replacement, or the tactical water tender, or if there's another option that council wishes staff to consider, we'd be willing to do that. So I would like to hear the input of council so we can get direction, if you would mind, please.
Okay. So I'm going to make a recommendation to move forward with the tactical water tender purchase. No matter what we do and what we decide later in the future, is going to be the best option for replacement to benefit the county mission and increase our fire protection here in the city. The specifications will have a larger pump with more water capacity than what we currently have in engine 36. Without a real clear estimate of the costs, what it's going to cost to replace or repair engine 36. It's kind of hard to make a determination on that right now. I think we were looking at $12,000 to $16,000 to buy us 1 year of additional fire protection from that apparatus, if we choose to purchase a water tender to replace it. Does anybody else on council have any suggestions, any ideas of which direction they'd like to go on that?
Yeah, so Sean, I have some thoughts and some concerns, because we kind of touched on the water tender before when, we were having some other discussions about what it looks like if we, were to receive proposals from other agencies. And I think right now where I stand with this is I don't feel comfortable making a decision on this financially tonight without seeing a formalized proposal from the county on consolidation. And I kind of feel like where we're standing right now, we're having a lot of different fire department discussions at once. And it's almost feeling like we've got all these carts out there and we've got this horse or this elephant in the room that I'd like to just get that discussion done and over with and have it, so that I know what that looks like, so that I can make subsequent decisions from there. Because I feel like without having that proposal from the county, everything else is tied up for me.
So I want to chime in too. I got to go back to some data. So I'm kind of uncomfortable right now too, financially, because we basically have in our reserve, or I'm sorry, in our general fund, 2 million. And I'm just worried if we put money out to this right now and we have these other options, I just don't know what that's going to do to us because of the pandemic. Like, I don't even know where we are on sales tax. What is that picture going to look like? Lori, do we have any kind of hint of where our loss is in 2020? That's a question.
Yeah, you can look back at the charts that I just had gone over in the budget review, just that shows that we, sorry, I set them aside. Overall, citywide, we're coming within $81,000 of what we had projected for the operations for the city this year.
Yeah, for operating cost, right? Yeah, I just don't feel comfortable making a financial decision on this at this point. Plus, I want to get a full scope of where are we going as a whole to protect our people. Like, if we purchase this and we put all this, I just don't know if we have the money to rent out.
Hey, this is Joe. Can I make a comment here?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
So here's some things that I think would be good steps for us to do. So we have to address the thing that Trinity brought up, and that I think is part of that workshop that's still ongoing. I don't think that's finished yet. And I think we got to get to the end of that piece of stuff to at least have that fact nailed down. I think the estimate that's in here just to see what's wrong with 36 is still probably for $1,500 is worthwhile doing to get at least how bad is the damage that we need to deal with financially for engine 36 to at least nail that one down and say, is that an engine that we need to get rid of? Or is that an engine that still we can squeeze another couple of years out of it? I think the idea you had with starting, let's call the staff study to see what this replacement tanker is going to cost, how we can get it funded, get some of these steps put in place. Because I think long-term, we're going to probably end up with putting a replacement tanker out there. I was just looking at the one of the used equipment websites for fire trucks and fire tankers and all. And there's a couple of fire companies back east that it looks like they closed down or got a gigantic grant to replace everything. And they have some pretty nice tankers that are dated about 2010 that are on the list for about half this price. At half the price, all of a sudden, everything changes. So I think we got a couple steps that staff could do to help kind of scout this out, get the facts down so that we can get this thing to a point where we can make a decision. What I'd like to propose is we proceed in the 3 avenues that we were going with. One is to finish the consolidation look at thing that Trinity talked about. And that's part of what's going on with that workshop meeting we've been having. Second, I'd like to look at what's going to cost to repair engine 36 so we get it out of we don't know what it would take to say, here's how much it is, and we can then make a very clear decision, keep it, scrap it, fix it, or whatever. And I think starting get the data together for a tactical water tanker, there's at least a month worth of homework to be done to get this down to what it would be and what the actual proposal would be before we can make a decision. So I propose we do all 3 in parallel.
And we have all the information for the tactical water tender. It's just choosing how we finance it at this point. But
Well,
yeah, get the information on the other 2. I understand.
Yeah, but I'd also look at some of the used ones that are out there, because if we got a unit that was only 10 years old and was about half the price, that may be worthwhile for Colfax. Because it's not a 40-year-old unit, but a 10-year-old unit's got a lot of useful life left in it. And we should at least look at that. We may roll it out, but if we had those facts there, we could say, yeah, here's what it would mean.
So we haven't heard from David yet. I'll wait until David has a chance to talk, and then I've got another comment.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. So I'm all for enhancing fire protection. It's a great idea, but just I have one clarification question for whomever would need to answer this. So it's in addition to fire protection, the other kind of premise it appears is that, oh, and if we get this, it will improve our ISO rating. I just want to confirm that like our ISO rating can't decrease or increase or be enhanced or whatever until at least May 2025, correct?
Yeah, this is Brian again, Dave. So the next formal rescoring for the city comes in the fall of 2024. The score would come out the first part of 25 and take effect the 1st of June of that year. So formally, the city wouldn't be rescored until then. But we also know that the score from 2019 that we received in January of 2020 did not reflect the correct information that was provided to ISO. So we're going to be rescored based on that. The premise is that the city will score better, but without having ISO look at that material, the best that we can say right now is that we'll maintain a 4 or 4X. The pump capacity of engine 36 is what would come into play if it's not replaced or put in service. That issue would impact negatively the score in the fall of 2024.
Okay, so formally, we will not have another rescoring until that time.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay. So just in general, and thanks for the go ahead. I thought someone was chiming in. Thanks for the clarification. I just think in general, it's too soon to pull the trigger on an acquisition like this. I think that, again, I'm always for enhancing fire protection. And of course, if I knew that, you know, pulling the trigger on this could like significantly enhance our ISO rating overnight, and therefore all the citizens of Colfax and surrounding areas, home insurance would decrease, after a short period of time, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. I might take a harder look at this, but I just think trying to be fiscally responsible, I just think it's too soon, in my opinion, and I agree with Trinity and Joe, just stating the obvious. There's a lot going on. I think of most importance is just nailing down and finalizing the agreement. with Cal Fire and all that first. And then when things settle and are established, maybe this resurfaces, but I only see this resurfacing until we're coming up probably closer to when the ISO rating, renewal is, in 2024, in my opinion. I just think any time beforehand is too soon, in my opinion.
Yeah, David, the only problem with that is you probably got to back it up about 2 years before that, because it takes a year to get the equipment, unless you buy it used.
Right, and so good point, Joe. And then so so here's my additional thought. I know in the previous meeting there was the idea or the concept that possibly it could be a potential option that our Colfax volunteer department gets rolled up under the Placer County fire department. If that's the case, I'm sure that opens up the door to possibly, and I'm not an expert on fire budgets and all that, but maybe that's another avenue that could help enhance our local fire department or fire protection without having to do it now and at the city's expense, and kind of doing it one-off solo with our Colfax volunteer fire department. So I still feel it's too soon, in my opinion.
And then just one other point to mention on this, if we did go with the new fire tender, and let's say assume we had to spend the 376K, that's not coming out of the general budget because it'd be financed over maybe 10 years. So it'd be something like 37K a year, or if we did it over 5 years, it'd be twice that.
Mm-hmm.
Correct, and that's a great point, and that's what I learned tonight, because prior to this meeting, I actually did think it would come just straight out of the general fund or something, but from Lori's report here, I learned that yes, this could be financed, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But then I also just try to think to myself how it'd be tough to justify with to the citizens, that it'd be tough to justify such an expense, given just everything else, and given it candidly just the protection we have with Cal Fire currently. I just don't think it makes a huge difference at the expense that the city would have to incur. So that's my opinion. I just think it's too soon.
I think where I'm at it right now, and kind of my final point is, I don't feel comfortable executing any major purchases or any other form of contract negotiations at this point until we've seen a formalized proposal for consolidation with the county. Because at this point, everything's hypothetical, and until we see that proposal and have something in front of us to work with, we're doing a lot of hypothetical comparisons that, it's making me really uncomfortable, because we all have our own image in our head of what this would look like. And I think I just need to see a proposal in writing on paper to frame our other discussions going forward, because, I don't feel comfortable making these other decisions without that in front of us at this point.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Trinity, on that. And when I say we just need to be careful fiscally, it's in all areas of where we're spending money. And that's just my point of the pandemic and, what is our damage from the sales tax loss?
And Mr. Mayor, just a reminder, before the council makes a decision or direction one way or the other, you should solicit public comment.
Yep. Do we have any public comment on this item?
I do believe we have somebody on Zoom that is interested in making a comment. Shanna is going to allow them to speak.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Stephen Harvey, 251 Schultz Avenue. Joe, I really like your idea of getting used. The problem is you're going to have to check with CARB, because I know not too long ago, all government entities in California had to replace all of their equipment, if it's diesel, to meet CARB specifications, and every other state in the union could use that equipment, but California couldn't.
Yep, I know, but that's why I think it'd be worthwhile just to do that analysis to say, is there anything out there that we could use? And the answer may be no.
I agree 100%.
Yep.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think you guys need to do more research on this before you pull the trigger on it. You know, it's like you're talking about now. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Sean, there's one other item that's kind of buried in those options that I think we've got to make an item to put some serious study into. And that's what it's going to take to upgrade the fire station down there. And I think we shouldn't put that off. I mean, we did a good job getting the metal roof on the one station, but I think the station right behind City Hall there needs work done to get it to where it needs to be for any engine. And we should seriously put that as an item that we get sized to figure out what it would take. Does that make sense?
Yep. All right. Wes, did you capture the 4 things that Joe had mentioned?
Mr. Mayor, I wrote down what Councilmember Pcwa was talking about. I want to look at the integration potential, simultaneously be looking at engine 36 and get a repair estimate on it. And third, look at, getting a used unit. We've already got, looking at the fire station on our list of things. The challenge I'm having is getting somebody over here to give us cost proposals. And I'm hoping as we expand the staffing that we have and get a new public works director, be able to get that task handed off and be able to get that taken care of. But it's in our notes.
Okay, thanks. I'm just gonna add one more comment. We've been putting stuff off for a long time. It always comes up like this. I've been working on this project for over a year of trying to get this tender purchased. It's been brought to council several times for consideration and talks. I understand that the new agreement changes and the massive changes that we're possibly looking at from the 20 years of previous history we've had in this agreement could make a big impact on that. So I understand, but we just keep putting off. Our equipment's getting older and older and not getting replaced. And we're just going to be that much further behind every year, every month that we put off purchasing or doing any further investigation. But hopefully we can get those questions answered and come up with a good plan so we can actually have a solid plan moving forward, maybe beyond just next purchase and into the next 5 years, or we'll roll up into the county and they'll make those decisions for us.
Sean, I agree with what you're saying. And that's why I really, really, really want to emphasize that going forward, we need this information expeditiously. This isn't something that I'd like to drag out for several months, longer than it needs to. I want the information in front of council so that we can start reviewing and start making decisions and not have this be a terribly drawn out process it doesn't need to be. I want to be able to make decisions and move forward and come up with the best game plan and go from there.
It's been pretty drawn out, but all right, Wes, you got your direction?
I believe so, Mr. Mayor. Just for everybody's knowledge, I think the invite's already been sent out. The next workshop with CAL FIRE in Placer County is March 11th. So we'll look at it at that point, and it sounds I'm hearing that we want to see some consideration for the integration proposal. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I have my direction then, Mayor. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. All right. If there's no other comments, then we'll move on to item 9C, Fireworks Farms cultivation permit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to kind of lead this in. This was a continuation from the public hearing that was held on January 27th. Council subsequently closed the public hearing. During the council comments and question period, several questions were raised. Therefore, the agenda item was continued to a date certain of February 24th. That's what we have before us tonight. The item council requested included a tour of the applicant's cultivation facility in Sacramento and the availability of water for the cultivation operation. Staff set up the tour for the council and noticed it to the public because it included all of council. And that occurred on February 8th of 2021. On the second item, Fireworks Farms indicated they needed 7,500 gallons of water per day. Fireworks Farms has provided correspondence from PCWA that states that they could provide potable water to meet their demands. So at this point, Kyle Tankard's on the line as well too to address any follow-up questions you have. We do have some public comments that are going to be presented on the slides in there as well. So staff is just really requesting that council discuss and consider authorizing the city manager to issue the commercial cannabis cultivation business permit valid for 1 year to Fireworks Farms. We look forward to your direction.
Okay, thanks, Wes. Is there any discussion? Joe, you got any comments, questions? Want to start this off?
Yeah, so I'll start this off that we did a tour of the facility down in Sacramento, and we put together a summary report of what we observed. I'm just going to walk through it just briefly. And we found some new things that we weren't aware of in the discussions with the last council meeting. So I'll just kind of highlight all those things in here. So, and I kind of tried to break the things down as like, what do we see as an issue, which is kind of a showstopper? What's a concern, which is something that somebody could generate a work plan to kind of fix it or prevent it from reoccurring? And then just what are work items that need to be addressed? So the facility we thought that they had was more closer to a residential area. So the first thing that we did is we brought up Google Maps to try to figure out how close the closest homes were to the facility down in Sacramento. And they're in about the 1,400-foot range. Most of the area where their Sacramento facility is just commercial buildings with no residential stuff nearby. The facility was set up fairly nice with a chain link fence that had, I think, some razor wire on top of it, but it had a nice black metal square tube fence in the front. It was about 6 to 8 feet high with a security guard and gate. That all looked very nice. What we noticed was from a couple of blocks away, we could definitely tell that there was a smell there. In fact, up until visiting that place, I had no idea that the cannabis stuff had an odor. And it was strong enough that even the vehicle we were in that has a built-in HEPA filter, it was strong enough from about 2 to 3 blocks away to really smell it. So that was a problem that I was not aware of personally, just how bad the odor was from this stuff. We did a walkthrough of the facility, and they have lots of different areas: a chemical mixing area, growing rooms, seeding rooms, drying rooms, harvesting rooms. We also found that they had a number of other facilities. There's in addition to the facility that's a growing facility in Sacramento, they have a nursery license for selling potted plants that's in that facility. They have another facility that's for growing in New Mexico and Rhode Island. And they have, I think the number is 8 retail facilities in California. So as we went through the building, there appeared to be carbon scrubbers on the HVAC system, but they weren't used for odor control. So we asked some questions about how long the carbon filters last in the current way they're using them. What's the maintenance schedule on that? And they didn't have that information available there. And we saw nothing attached to the filters to indicate when they saturate. And carbon filters, if you're familiar with even something as simple as like a water filter at your house, that's a carbon filter, they only run for a certain amount of time before they saturate, and then their effectiveness drops off. So we had no, when we left the council meeting, the last council meeting, we had no understanding that the greenhouse would have vents that open to the outside where air from inside the greenhouse is allowed to go outside. And that sounds like you don't have filtration on 100% of the air leaving the facility. So that was an issue for us that we didn't expect that to be a problem because we thought 100% of the air leaving the greenhouses was treated. The second item that came up, and we were surprised at that, the growing rooms and their seating rooms had extremely bright illumination to the point where you could stand in the hallway and look in, but if you were going to be in that room, you needed like a very dark pair of sunglasses on. We also found out that in the time that the lights need to be on were typically 12 hours on and 12 hours off. And when they were trying to get the plants to flower, they were 20 hours on and 4 hours off. So that raised another issue for us that we didn't realize because we thought they would just be using daylight. That if you look in the winter months in Colfax, there's only about 9 hours and 25 minutes of daylight. So that means there's 10 hours plus where you're going to have lights. And the question is, how would the lights be shielded so that the illumination is not bothering the neighbors in the area? The next item was the PCWA water supply. And that's a concern that I think they've addressed with their other email that came out, that PCWA is committed to provide enough water flow for them. Then we were told that they have 100% accounting for all of the plant material. That was kind of interesting because we had told people we were going to walk the neighborhood and the area around the plant. So when we did that, we found a number of plants laying behind the building that were potted with the tops cut off. And that doesn't sound like there's 100% control of the material. So that brings up with a number of these things. It all sounded good at the meeting at City Council, but when you looked at the stuff, we did not see what I would call, something that says you have good trust in what a person's saying to be correct. So that was a problem. Another thing that we found that was disturbing a little bit is we walked on the, 3/4 of the way around the building. There was a number of gas cans that were sitting out there. And we're in a high fire, woolly fire zone area. And if people are sloppy about how they're caring for flammable liquids, that's a problem. We actually took the cans that were laying on their side and stood them up, one of which had gasoline in it. So that seems to be a problem. It says like, wait, are you managing your stuff well and keeping your facilities clean? So that was a problem that we saw there. Following that, we then took a drive over to the proposed property location just to do a side-by-side comparison. And what you are in the area where the proposed property is, just off of 174, it's kind of in an uphill canyon that the winds kind of flow from the railroad track side uphill to the residential side. And the residences are within about 400 feet of the property. So they're much, much closer, which means everything that might have been sensitive in a commercial zone will be more sensitive in a residential zone. So the issue of the odor control is important. The issue of the light is very important. And then we had been told that they put a security fence up around this property. So I actually took some pictures of the security fence. There were 4 chain link fence sections that were put by the driveway area, 2 of which were laying down. And with 4, any kid or adult could easily walk around them because the ends were open. So we're looking like, you said you had security. We saw no security there, so to speak. Along the railroad track side, there was a much longer security fence there, but you could walk around the ends. There was places that there was about a 2.5 foot gap under the fence that you could go under. And there was places where the fence was actually disconnected and separated by about 8 feet. So that presented another problem. We also found a mattress that was out there that looked like somebody was using that was towards the railroad side. The two buildings on the property, as you can see from the pictures in here, were unsecured. There was lots of debris, trash, and other stuff around the building, including abandoned refrigerators, air conditioners, lots of leftover concrete blocks and stuff, abandoned vehicles. So we're looking at a facility that's not secure, even though supposedly some of this stuff was taken care of. We also saw some fairly hazardous things there. In front of one of the garage doors to the building that was unsecure, there was a board with lots of nails sticking out. If any kid goes running across that, somebody's going to get a 3-inch nail in their foot. Inside that building, we saw evidence of an encampment. We know it was fairly new because the food was still in the bags, partially eaten and partially drunk. Continuing on, we saw another abandoned vehicle on the property. Inside the vehicle is a propane tank laying on its side. That's a problem. There's a cab from a truck that looked like it was a sleeping room, like one of these sleeper attachments in there. So for a property owner that's had this property for 2+ years, it's like, where's the trust and confidence? So I was kind of surprised at what we found, knowing that this was an agenda item, knowing this was all kind of in advance set up. So that's kind of it. There's a few other items in the report, but I don't know. Sean, you were there. Do you have any other comments on that?
No, I think you summed it up pretty good. I was also surprised at the condition of the property right now, and would have thought that if they were going to open it up for us to take a look at or mention that they owned it and they wanted to do something with it, they would have spruced it up a little bit. Looks like it's just been sitting there open for as long as they've owned it.
Yep.
But that's all I have. Thanks, Joe. Good
Yep.
summary there of our trip and what we got to see. Marnie, do you have any comments?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just want to get to the item here and like, what are we actually looking at? What's before us? You know, and what's before us is like a continuation. And I want to know what public comment has, you know, is there anybody on the lines right now for public comment? But I mean, we need to specifically look at, did they do what they were supposed to do? And how did we come up with this 95.22 score? Where is that coming from if we have all these different issues with the pictures that have been provided? You know, because I mean, I'm looking at all the public comment, and I'm seeing that we have unions in here, you know, giving their support on this company. So, I mean, I think that we need to really look at and fine tune and listen to the people that are in
Marty,
opposition.
mind you, this detailed report Joe's put together is his analysis of his experience during his walkthrough with Sean and, you know, with Mary. This is not, you know, a walkthrough of the facility already been built. The facility that's been proposed does not exist yet.
Okay. So, I mean, keeping in mind of the people, I'm looking at, now I have to go back to it. I had it counted and I lost the number. I think it was 28 concerns of a neighboring, I don't know if it's a residence or a business.
The
I should
residents is in that
screenshot
area.
it. I lost it. How many, on the first, there's one letter that came in from a lady. Let me see if I can get to it. Nope, that's the
Yeah,
wrong one.
that was the lady who owns old Colfax vet directly above the property, who'd sent the email with the probably 28 points on it or 18 points or whatever that we
Yeah.
addressed at the last council meeting.
Did we
I do.
address those? Because I don't know, why is there 24 through 30 now that's in red highlight?
Yes, we did actually address those, and we had a representative from Fireworks Farms actually walk through as well.
Walk through the property, or I'm talking about
No,
these
walk through the
comments?
points, like actually speak on the different issues that were brought up during public comment.
Yeah. And then the other thing I want to know is, I'm looking at participants here. Who is the owner of this company? Are they on the line? Because they weren't in the last meeting, and I sure would like to hear from that person. Are they on the line?
Wes, do we have anybody from Fireworks Farms on the line tonight?
We do. We have Katie Maple and Mr. Sanchez. Katie, do you care to make some comments?
Hi, yes, this is Katie Maple with Fireworks Farms. David Spradlin's our owner, and unfortunately he can't make it here tonight. But we do have 3 different representatives from our team here. Angelica Sanchez, who you heard from at the last council meeting, myself, and then our legal counsel as well. We've submitted extensive information to all of the different questions that have come up. And Angelica actually went and knocked on neighborhoods' doors, neighboring businesses' doors, and we did a community meeting last week to address concerns as well. We weren't aware that there was anyone that went to the property to look. We do realize that there are some issues with the property. We bought it 2 years ago, approximately, but it's been vacant for about 8 years, as I understand it. This is our proposal to improve the property. And so we're happy to address any specific concerns that you have, but this is our plan to make it better. And we hope that we're able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Am I still on?
Yep,
yeah.
you're still on, Marnie. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if this is somebody's business, why isn't he here? That concerns me, and then there was something else that I seen. Hold on, let me look for my paper and see what my concerns were. So explain to me, how do you treat the water, that you'll be using? Because it looks like 16,700 gallons of water has been authorized through Pcwa. So what does that look like? Can you let me know what that looks like? Oh, I see.
So Katie, I think Councilmember Mendoza is wanting to know, when you irrigate, will you have runoff? How will you deal with runoff on your production? If you could answer, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's Angelica Sanchez. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to speak on that. So as you know, the state requires we be compliant with Pcwa, and they have very stringent guidelines on water and water disposal. So we'll have to get our Pcwa approval before we get our state license, before we can begin operations. Because we did propose a conceptual water pond, and we got feedback from council and from the community that that wasn't a good idea due to drought, mosquitoes, and things like that. We went ahead and we engaged a company called HyperLogic, which specialize in recycling and the reclamation of runoff water. They do this by installing a recirculatory hydroponic system, which works to filter and reclaim water for irrigation, which results in 75 to 80% recovery of water. So while we do have the meter with PCWA, we do plan on recycling the water that we do use.
Okay, so that's good. As far as EPA, what I'm worried about there is our natural resources and our rivers. How are we guaranteed that any heavy metals or anything that you're using for cultivation isn't going to run off into our natural streams?
Absolutely, and the CDFA, as well as the planning department and the state, all regulate our water and our water disposal. And so we won't, the runoff that we do have will be filtered through this HyperLogic system, and the CDFA and other regulatory agencies will come in and test us and make sure that we're following these guidelines.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, now let me go back and look at something really quick. I'm back in the first page of comments. Oh, 22. Interference for nearby residents that are on all sides of the property. Number 27. Septic tank, you already explained that one. And number 30, this project is too close to residential area. How close are the houses that we're talking about? How close are these residents?
They're within 400 feet.
which is within our ordinance.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Sorry. And just to give comment, I personally canvassed the neighboring businesses and the closest neighborhoods. So I went down to the Shady Glen Estates. I went down Lazari Road. I went down Hill Road and North Swiss Road. And I invited and spoke with the neighborhood, inviting them to our community meeting on Friday. I also personally left my cell phone number on the community meeting card. And I received about 8 phone calls in the last week with the community just asking questions, which I addressed. Most of them were unfamiliar with our project, and I was able to address all their questions and their concerns.
yeah. So did you go to the Red Frog?
I did. So the businesses that I went to were the Just Out of Town Lodge, Roland's Lake Realty, Red Frog, the Valley View Center, and Nagy Precision.
And the, what is that place called? The hot dog stand?
The hot dog stand was closed, but I did leave a card.
Okay. So I'm just wondering what the input was and how do you guys really feel about having something of this substance, you know, next to a bar?
Most of their concerns were about odor and lights, which I assured them that neither of them would affect their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, mostly I just explained the project, the length of the project. There was also a little bit of discussion about road obstruction. And I let them know that we'd build it out slowly in a way that we wouldn't shut down Highway 174, which was one of their biggest concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
So, Mayor?
Yep.
My other concern is, have you reached out to law enforcement? And what does this take on, you know, what is their take on this? Like, okay, I understand that they're going to have a security 24 hours there, you know, but this type of business is going to make high risk for criminal, you know, activity or planning or however.
It's important to note, Marnie, that when we wrote our ordinance, we did write our ordinance with the support and the input of law enforcement, and the requirements that are set forth within our ordinance were due to their feedback.
Okay, good. So we did get that count. I'm just trying to check all the boxes of, you know, that we've done our due diligence here. And again, I'm just worried about the residents of Colfax and their
We do have,
stunted by this.
we do have Sergeant Griffiths on still. Sergeant?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Can I find out which law enforcement is okay with this? Who you'd contacted? Because I spoke to the sheriff himself, and he's not in support of any cultivation or marijuana dispensaries in that much in the entire county. He would not support.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I didn't think so, but I did do a reach out and I didn't hear back from anybody. What was that?
Yeah, that's the opinion of the sheriff. He would not support this business moving into Placer County at all.
Okay, thank you, Sergeant.
You're welcome.
Okay, yeah, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Marnie. David, do you have any questions or comments on this item?
Yeah, thank you. So as the crow flies, I personally live within a quarter mile of this site. So obviously this is from a personal level, a concern of mine, and everyone brings up valid points, opinions. When I filter everything personally, and then I put my councilman hat on, you know, my first question is, if we grant this, if we issue this permit with all of the stipulations, like you must, you know, do this, checklist galore, you know, just, it's not even a question, it's a statement. I personally don't have a problem with a company that is willing to jump through hoops, be candidly more buttoned down than most other businesses in this region that I see. There are pros and cons, but in my opinion, there are more pros with respect to a business like this coming in if, and that's, I'd like to bold and italicize the word if the applicant actually does what they say they're going to do, and it sounds like they are, and it sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, it sounds like if they don't check all the boxes, then you know, they won't get their final certificate of occupancy or whatever it would be after the fact. And I just find it hard to believe that after all of the energy and the money to date that the applicant has spent on trying to appease us and also just meet regulations and parameters and just be a good neighbor, etc. I just don't know how we wouldn't, after all, again, taking all the pros and cons into consideration, allowing this permit to be issued. And that's basically my feedback on this.
Thanks, David. Trinity?
I'm of the position, I strongly agree with David at this point. When we wrote our ordinance and we went through the various hoops and put all the work in to make sure that we wrote an ordinance that supported the community and was fair to businesses and, fair to everybody involved in the situation, from what we were looking at and taking into account our history of going back and forth and all over the place with cannabis. When we look at this situation as a whole and where we're standing today, I would prefer that if we were going to issue a license, I would feel very comfortable issuing it to a company like Fireworks Farms that, has the experience to back them and is willing to take on the stipulations that we're putting in place and is willing to comply and be flexible. And so where I would stand today is that I would say I am in support of, issuing this license with conditions and just being very clear that we want to make sure that there's measures in place to control light pollution. We expect property to be, cleaned up within a reasonable amount of time. And, we would expect that, especially if water is going to be trucked in and out, we would expect that that road's going to be paved to accommodate. But, as long as we've listed out what our concerns are and what stipulations we are asking for them to meet, I feel like at this point, having been one of the people that wrote this ordinance and said this looks good and voted yes on it, I feel like given the scoring sheet and the information I have today, it would be unethical for me to vote no on this license. That's all I have.
Great, thanks, Trinity. I'd like to go ahead and take public comment now. Wes, Shanna, or Amy, do you want to start off the public comment that we have? I know we had some text come in and I'm not sure if we have anything on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. I will, as long as that's okay with Wes. I know we've received email, written public comment, Zoom, and Facebook. I was going to start with if we have anybody raising their hand on Zoom, we would start with maybe the verbal public comments. Shanna can double check that.
We do have one hand raised. Arturo.
There's 3 hands raised. Yeah, let's start with them.
So this,
if I may, this is Arturo Sanchez with the counsel for the applicant, Fireworks Farms. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, Mayor, Council, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the diligence that the city has spent in looking into our application. I could go line by line and talk about facts that weren't covered from the site visit, the fact that there are multiple people growing at the Joelis location, and it's difficult to attribute smell to one operator, that there's no way to indicate whether that's coming from us. We could go into identifying that the chief of police in Marysville, a very conservative city and one that was not necessarily open to cannabis being included in their city, now believing and being a firm supporter in our ability to deliver product, a retail location and a facility that is compliant with all of the regulations. We could continue to go down a road where we knock down every single issue that's raised, but it's very simply for us a simple analysis that the city needs to apply. You have an opportunity for good labor-related jobs to be deployed in the city of Colfax. You have an opportunity to take a piece of property that has not been in productive use for 8+ years and turn it to productive use. You have an opportunity to generate a new revenue source for the city. And for cities, there are a very limited number of revenue sources that you have available that are new, that can help you pave roads, that can help you provide services to your residents. And we believe that as we go along through the process with the city manager, address concerns as we develop the site, work to get all of our work permitted, work to make sure that we meet all the environmental concerns of both the city and the state, that you will find that there will be no better operator with whom to entrust the delicate implementation of a cannabis-related cultivation site at this property and in your city, and that you will find that we are one of a handful of companies in the state that have developed great partnerships with every city that we work with. And we appreciate the time and the energy that you've spent here. We are simply asking for an opportunity to deliver a product to you that you can be proud of and that will employ your residents. And we hope that you will take into consideration our track record in each and every one of the cities that we've opened and look at the totality of our ability to deliver that type of a project rather than continue to find ways in which to poke holes at what we think is a very strong project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other public comment? Anybody who's actually joining us on Zoom?
You have another hand raised.
Yes, Stephen Harvey.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, you know, he just talked about the taxes. I can remember when we went through the dispensary, we were told the streets would be paved and the ballpark could be fixed and this and that, everything else. How's that working out for you? I don't think as well as it was promised. I also have several friends around town who said they've seen things going downhill since that dispensary was open in the way of basically quality of people around. What was the last thing? And I'll tell you, if they can't control that smell down there out of, I don't know where that smell's coming from, but if they can't control that smell, it would be horrible living next to one of those places. So anyway, I'm against the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Really quick, I just want to make a quick comment that I forgot to touch on. I also did a drive by the facility, and separately, so did at least one other council member. And I just want to point out that my experience driving by the facility, especially as someone with a very sensitive nose that, you know, is easy to nausea currently, I did not experience that issue at all. So, you know, I just want to make sure that that's on record, that not all of our experiences in visiting that facility were identical.
Okay,
And
thanks.
Mayor Lohman, as we go forward with the public comment, I would recommend that the council stick to the 3-minute public comment as you normally do, just to ensure that everybody has the same amount of time and it's fair in public comment.
Yeah, I probably should have said that first. Sorry, we'll limit public comment to 3 minutes max. Thank you, Amy.
I'll keep an eye on the time.
All right, thanks.
Okay, it looks like we have somebody else on Zoom that is ready to speak.
Hi, good evening, Council. My name is Fabrizio Sasso. I'm the Executive Director of the Sacramento Central Labor Council, AFL-CIO. We represent over 180,000 working men and women in Yolo, Sacramento, Placer, El Dorado, Nevada, and Amador counties. And we're here tonight to advocate for good quality jobs. You know, Fireworks Farms is one cultivation site in Sacramento with roughly 25 employees. And the high road jobs include classifications of cultivation specialists and garden technicians. And these are often skills that are transferable to other industries. In addition, the Fireworks Perfect Union operates 2 dispensaries within the city of Sacramento and a distribution center called Meta Distribution. And Perfect Union is the only union cannabis company in the city of Sacramento, and they provide high road jobs with career pathways. These are really good middle-class jobs. The company's commitment to their employees and the community is unmatched anywhere else in this industry. And organized labor has done a lot of great work with the policy front within this industry to ensure that quality job creation and worker and consumer safety is of the utmost importance. So these are new jobs. They're not displacing any existing workforce. You know, since 2017, the U.S. cannabis industry has averaged almost 30% growth each year, and no other industry comes close to that. California remains the nation's leading cannabis employer with nearly 60,000 full-time equivalent jobs. And if California has that kind of significant exponential growth within the industry and the strong labor standards to ensure these high road jobs are the result, why wouldn't we want to put more Colfax residents to work? Why wouldn't we want to bring this industry to Colfax and give our residents an opportunity to embark on a new career? You know, the pandemic has brought a lot of economic disaster to some industries, and we know those jobs aren't coming back. So we strongly urge you to say yes to jobs tonight and urge this body to move forward with granting Fireworks Farms the commercial cannabis cultivation permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe we still have more on Zoom.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, good evening, Mayor Lemon and fellow council members. My name is Stephanie Brown. I'm the district union representative of UFCW for Fireworks Farms Sacramento. I'm speaking in favor tonight for Fireworks Farms commercial cannabis cultivation permit application. The Fireworks Farms union contract was the first cultivation contract certified by the ALRB California, which is historical for many reasons. There are roughly 25 employees in the bargaining unit, and they range from cultivation specialist to garden technician. We are most proud of the contract that the union secured for them, where they receive 40% above industry standards in every area: healthcare, vision, dental plans. The wages for cultivation specialists tops out at $21 an hour currently, and $21.25 for garden technician. They have the first savings plan established and administered by the UFCW Trust. Employees receive vacation pay, funeral leave, sick leave, up to 24 days. Beyond what the union has negotiated, the company takes excellent care of their employees as well as their communities that they enter. For example, the CEO provides fresh food baskets from locally grown farmers markets to employees, voluntarily provided hazard pay during the first few months of the pandemic before we even had an opportunity to negotiate it. It is my hope that the city of Colfax moves forward with the operator review process and grants Fireworks Farms a commercial cannabis cultivation permit and provides the residents of Colfax in search of employment and opportunity for a great career. And also, as a side note, I have visited the facility several times. The smell, my experience with the smell is only when it's on grounds close to the warehouse itself, where I enter. And I haven't experienced any other I don't know if you want to call it the plants, the potted plants, the gas tank, the gas cans or anything left out on the side. In my experience, I have not seen any of that. Thank you for your time and opportunity to address this body.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Shanna will let in the next speaker.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. This is Nicole Trujillo. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks so much. You might also hear my 2-year-old and 4-year-old in the background as it's approaching bedtime, but I appreciate your time this evening. I'm the political and legislative director for the United Food and Commercial Workers Local 8. I addressed this body a few weeks ago to speak in support of Fireworks Farms commercial cannabis cultivation permit. And while some of my remarks or those from other labor entities may be redundant, they are necessary to frame the message of who we are, what we advocate for, and why our partnership with Perfect Union Fireworks Farms is extremely important to creating high road jobs with career pathways and prioritizing worker and consumer safety. So my union, Local 8, represents 35 union members, 35,000 union members within the retail, grocery, meat packing, food processing, pharmaceutical, wine, and legalized cannabis industries. We go from the Oregon border to the Grapevine, predominantly on the east side of California. With over 1.3 million members throughout the United States and Canada, we're part of America that makes safety and reliability a part of every agricultural, processing, and retail transaction. The UFCW is also very close to finalizing a state-accredited apprenticeship program for retail, cultivation, manufacturing, and distribution sectors of the cannabis industry. What this means is that, similar to learning a trade, like a plumber or an electrician, workers will receive on-the-job training, OTJ, during their apprenticeship and graduate as a journeyman with wages increasing along the way. And the UFCW was also instrumental in protecting workers against unforeseen hazards on the job with the passage of AB 2799, requiring each cannabis employer to have one employee and one supervisor complete a 30-hour Cal OSHA training within the first year of licensure. Perfect Union and Fireworks Farms is really one of the only companies in the state of California to even be in compliance with this mandate. They're proactive instead of reactive. And I personally can tell you, since doing this since about 2014 on the policy side, I've worked with and interacted with hundreds of cannabis operators throughout California. Fireworks Farms, Perfect Union is the gold standard for regulatory compliance and worker empowerment. And as many others have highlighted the many positive attributes of Fireworks Farms, what is evidently clear is the need for high road jobs, new job creation in California and throughout the country with this vast expansion of the cannabis industry. Just a few more statistics for you. In California, there are now more cannabis workers, nearly 60,000, 57,970 to be exact, more cannabis workers than bank tellers. The state's licensed cannabis sector grew roughly 80% in a single year, from 2.1 billion in 2019 of sales to 3.777 billion in 2020. That spurred the creation of nearly 24,000 new legal jobs last year. To put that in perspective, in the United States, there's now more legal cannabis workers than electrical engineers. There are more legal cannabis workers than EMTs and paramedics. There are more than twice as many legal cannabis workers as dentists. And those jobs aren't limited just to like Colorado and California. Medical marijuana is now legal in 37 states, while 15 states and Washington, D.C. have also legalized cannabis for all adults, all adult recreational use.
Nicole, I'm sorry to interrupt. You're over the 3-minute mark.
Okay, well, I would just like to take this last point of personal privilege to say that I'm a resident of Auburn, not that far down the hill from Colfax, and I myself have to commute to Sacramento. My husband is a fireman, commutes to San Francisco. My neighbors and I often talk about bringing industry up this way to improve the residents' quality of life. Getting to live where you love and not have to spend most of your time commuting is really a win-win for all. And so I really just appreciate your time and opportunity to address this body and hope that you can, as my colleague Fabrizio said, vote for jobs this evening and give residents of Colfax an opportunity for a new career. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and while we don't have any more speakers on Zoom at this moment, if anybody wanted to speak, they can raise their hand if they have not already spoke. We do have one in the chat box from Jamie. I'll just read it very quickly. She had to leave the meeting. She says, I am a Colfax High alumnus, class of '89. I am an attorney and a business owner. I am in support of bringing this business into the community as it will bring much needed wages, healthcare, etc., health insurance, etc. Fireworks Farm has a long record of success, and I feel going with an established company is a good move. These people have gone out of their way to assure that they have covered all their bases in a professional manner. I feel that they will be an asset to the community. Thank you for letting me comment, as I have a tight schedule and I must jump off the call. Thanks again.
Thank you, Amy.
That
And-
covers Zoom. I have about 5 emails that I can go over very quickly. These were all provided to the city council in full and are available in the record if the public wants to review any of them. Does the council, is the council ready for me to read those now? It could take a little bit of time.
Yeah, please go ahead. Thank you,
please.
Amy.
Amy, to probably save you some time, some of the comments from Gloria Friedman are redundant. I think there was only 7 additional comments. The rest were read into record last meeting. So
Perfect.
Mayor, if you're comfortable with that, can we just address the comments that weren't previously brought up?
I would like to hear all of the things that were brought in, because we're hearing both sides. I would like to hear all the pieces.
Right, but we
the
don't need
same
to go
time-
back over.
Yeah.
I want to hear all the new comments, but we don't need to go back over the 15 or 18 other comments that the same person had from the last meeting that were addressed. Correct.
And we should maintain the same
agree.
fair standard of 3 minutes. I mean, I know that these comments are written, and that's not fair, frankly, for you to be able to get in a half hour of comments just because you wrote your comment instead of speaking it over the phone.
For sure. I will definitely time myself and read these as quickly as I can.
Thanks.
Okay, let's start here. This first letter I have, let me start the timer, is from Amber Bauer, Executive Director of UFCW Western States Council. The United Food and Commercial Workers Western States Council writes in strong support of Firework Farms application within the city of Colfax. UFCW WSC represents over 11 UFCW locals and 180,000 workers in California, Nevada, Arizona, in retail, grocery, meatpacking, poultry processing, food processing, pharmaceutical, and cannabis industries, to name a few. They have stood in strong support of legalizing the cannabis industry through the support of Prop 64 to ensure that we are raising the standard of living for workers in the cannabis industry. They represent several thousand cannabis members in California. For the better part of a decade and more before recreational legal, they have fought to ensure this industry's job creation is abundant with career pathways and worker and consumer safety is a top priority. UFCW locals throughout California have been organizing cannabis workers since 2010, starting with medical cannabis and now recreational cannabis. Perfect Union has collective bargaining agreements with several UFCW local unions, from retail dispensaries to cultivation and distribution. Perfect Union is an example of an exceptionally high road employer, as demonstrated through the company's strong commitment to the high standards of regulatory compliance, the unique professionalism and experience of the organization's leadership, and most of all, the compassion and care it has for communities, particularly our most vulnerable residents. Perfect Union has at the forefront of our joint labor management statewide accredited apprenticeship program, which is launching soon, and are one of the only companies to comply with the 30-hour Cal OSHA training requirement as set forth by AB 2799. Compensation from Perfect Union is 40% above industry standards in every area, such as wages, benefits, including healthcare, vision, dental, and pension. During COVID-19 pandemic, Perfect Union was one of the first employers to willingly give employees hazard pay. UFCW's partnership with Perfect Union has raised the standard of living for cannabis workers across California, and we are proud to represent the workers at the forefront of the legal cannabis industry. The partnership between UFCW and Perfect Union has created strong labor standards and a diverse workforce. Perfect Union will be a great community partner and an outstanding cannabis business with Colfax. We strongly urge the city to select Perfect Union for a cultivation license. Okay, that takes care of one. Let me get to the other one. Okay, this next letter is from Kathleen Witt. And she says, it has come to my attention that a company named Firework Farms owns property on Highway 174 in Colfax. This company's proposed plan is to build on said property 4 greenhouses for growing cannabis, and each greenhouse is to be 2,500 square feet. I understand from a trusted, educated source who has visited an established site owned and operated by this company that the aroma and the illumination are disturbing. The aroma is too strong and the lighting too bright, and functioning 20 hours out of 24 for optimal growing. Colfax has been my home for 17 years, and I love it for its early California charm and its historical railroad importance. The light I desperately want to guide this town in the future is the same natural light that has always been on perfect schedule. And I do not want a new strange aroma wafting into town. In closing, I am fervently opposed to the business operating anywhere near the charming town of Colfax, California. A letter from Sacramento Central Labor Council, AFL-CIO. Oh, this is Mr. Sasso, and he already spoke. So we'll just have that public comment in the record. The next one, oh, that's Kathleen's. I already said that one. I have one here from Will Stockman, 525 Pine Street. I urge the council to keep 3 economic points in mind before they vote. Fireworks Farms as a Colfax business offers the potential for annual tax revenues of $140,000 in unrestricted funds going into the city's general fund. Employment starting at $17 an hour with benefits for local hires. And 3, the last time we saw fireworks on the 3rd of July, Fireworks Farms had paid for them. Those are his comments. And then I have the letter that we spoke about previously from Gloria Freeman. And the parts that she brought up that are new are 24 through 30. I can read all quickly, and if any of them are going to be addressed, maybe it can be after that. Number 24 is the concern that this is too close to residential and it would damage the entire area and decrease values. 25 is damage to the environment due to it being next to a wind tunnel, making the smell worse from the operations. 26 is PCWA has brown water, not white water, which is also needed for the development of this size. The use of brown water rather than white water would create sludge and cause environmental issues. 27, septic system here would be difficult to approve due to state regulations of septic systems. 28, why only one bidder and such a compressed approval timeframe? Why weren't other industrial parcels notified of compressed time frame of approval? Was this geared for approval for just this parcel? 29, applicant was previously denied for cannabis on this parcel. Why are we revisiting this? Why was the code changed to accommodate and override objections in the city of Colfax? And number 30, the project is too close to residential living areas that are surrounding it, make a hazardous living situations for those residences.
Wes, can you please respond to those, because several of those are ordinance related or, you know, otherwise related, or even Mick, if one of you two could please respond to those.
Certainly, we can take a crack at it. You know, the item 24, too close to residents, would damage the entire area or decrease values. That's subjective on the damage and decreased values portion of it. But in particular for the residential, the ordinance is very clear about the setback requirements for the cannabis activity to be within a residential area. It is appropriately zoned as industrial where it's currently proposed. Damage to environment due to being next to a wind tunnel, making the smells worse. I think the applicants provided some detailed information stating how they would address the odors. And again, if they cannot keep in compliance, the application would be denied for approval, and subsequently after the permit's issued, the permit would be revoked if they cannot stay in compliance. I'm not sure what she means by brown water. What PCWA, to my understanding, is proposed is to do potable water, which is, I think, what she's referring to white water. It's treated water, so it's not going, to my knowledge, to create a sludge issue. And again, as the applicant previously mentioned, that there's some strict guidelines that they have to follow to be in compliance. The septic system, That's regulated by the county, and again, they would have to have a septic system that satisfies the county's expectations before they could move forward with any type of development. I can't answer why we only had one bidder. We had an extensive window of time for multiple applicants to put in their proposals to do the different activities allowed underneath the current ordinance. And particularly, we weren't noticing the industrial parcels individually. When we went through the development of the ordinance itself, the public was solicited to participate in there where they were comfortable with the operations of the commercial cannabis activities. And I guess the answer more directly is, was this geared for approval for just this one parcel? No, it was open to all parcels that met the requirements of the ordinance, which were the commercial retail, commercial highway, and industrial zones. The applicant was previously denied the cannabis in this parcel. I think that was directly related. And Kyle, maybe your memory is better than mine, but I think they were proposing to have a retail store, not cultivation in the previous application on there. That's correct, right, Kyle?
I'm not sure if I was involved in that review. Was that recently, Wes?
No, that was under HDL. And at that time, we actually didn't deny any applications. We closed the application process to everyone. And then we shut down our ordinance and rewrote the whole thing.
Thank you for that reminder, Tracy. I appreciate it.
But what Mayor Pro Tem Burra said is correct.
And that is what I recall.
Can you scroll to number 30 for me, please? The project's too close to residents living in the area surrounding, making it hazardous living. Again, it's the project meets the setback requirements developed in the ordinance approved by council at this point. Does that address all the concerns that you wanted me to on there, Trinity?
Yes, thank you.
I have a
Did we have any other
public comments on Facebook that I'll go over real quick. I had Tom Parnham saying I am in favor of the cannabis production facility. The city needs the revenue and the jobs. Gloria Freeman also took place public commenting on Facebook. But as she submitted hers in writing ahead of time, and I know you guys have already gone over that, I'll just mention a couple really quick points on hers. The water is not acceptable. This is brown water, causes sludge, environmental issues. You already went over that. If you want to destroy the quality of life, including smell, all the way to the city of Colfax and start a fire, vote for this, is what she states. She feels there's many unresolved issues regarding the water, the pollution, and the road is not a highway. Curious why the ordinance was changed. More code violation, road is not a highway. Setback's been changed to accommodate the denial of the previous application. And she states PCWA is agricultural water.
I'd like to also point out, and this is an issue that Gloria had some confusion on at the last meeting. The definition of a public highway is any road or surface that's accessible to the public for transportation with a motor vehicle. And that definition is under the California Vehicle Code section. That's not, that does not solely include interstates or, other highways or freeways that, we would consider to be multi-lane traffic.
So I have read and acknowledged all the public comment that I know about. If Wes and Shannon knows of anything I missed, let me know.
And if not, Mr. Mayor, I recommend that you close the public comment and bring the matter back to council.
We still have another letter that came in that Wes has. It's got to be read yet. So the public comment's not quite done.
Wes, did you have another public comment that needed to be read real quick?
I thought, Joe, that was you gave me that one from the last meeting. Is that what you provided me?
No, that one I gave you was recent. That was not read at the last meeting.
Okay, do you happen to have a copy of it? Because I don't, I think it may be in my vehicle, and we can, if nothing else, we can get it added to the public record at this point. I don't have it with me, I'm sorry.
I don't have a copy in front of me and I'd like to get it read. If you could just dash out and pick it up, that'd be great.
Okay.
We could all take a 5-minute break too.
Who was the letter from? I'm just wondering if Wes
Yeah.
mentioned it to me.
It's a local resident that dropped it in my office.
Does it have a name associated with it?
No.
Okay, give me a minute.
All right,
Hey,
hold
Mick,
off for a
going
minute.
forward, I have no problem with public comments being included in the record, but going forward, and I just want to make sure we've got this as a point of clarification. Back when we were in person, we always required people coming up to the podium to make public comment to state their name and their address. Is that not required for public comment to own your public comment?
You are not obliged to give your name and address to attend a meeting. You can be requested to, but respectfully decline to give your name and address for public comment.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we had that clear, because again, fair standards for everybody. I don't want people thinking they have to give out that information if it's not actually required of them.
Okay, we'll give Wes just a minute. I think something else just popped up here. Hold on. Got a comment. That's from earlier. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, are we still on?
Yep, we're still here.
I apologize. Forgive me, I'm in the middle of moving it and it was actually in my truck.
No problem. Thanks for going to get it.
No problem. Give me a second to catch my breath here. It says, to the Colfax City Council members, as a resident of Colfax for many years, I have a very serious concerns dealing with your decisions regarding the permit for a commercial cannabis grow facility within the city limits. These are large commercial grow houses, bringing unwanted, undesirable aspects that may not have been considered prior to making a decision, such as there can be an overwhelming stench throughout the community. Yes, these are indoor facilities. However, that does not stop the smell from being carried throughout the surrounding areas. Intense bright lights can be seen from far distance. Increased crime brought to our small town from outsiders will become a deep concern. 2 different real estate agents have commented that this will bring down property values. This will obviously injure both the city and the property owners. How does this get rectified? It can't. Our small town needs to be identified as a safe, beautiful foothills town that allows families and children to grow in a community that offers a positive character, not a community identified as a town with a giant pot house. Please make your decision carefully. This is a permanent and allows for more of the same type of business. Once it's here, it will stay, and all of the negative consequences will stay as well. Your choice, I hope, will not be a personal one. The large picture of how our small town is identified and how it matures in the future is what counts. The tax dollars gained from this permit are certainly not worth the loss of what makes Colfax such a wonderful small town. Our community deserves better than this option. It deserves respect, healthy and thriving businesses, safe schools and parks, and safe family activities such as hiking our foothills trails and swimming in our rivers and lakes. Allowing a giant 20,000 square foot canvas grow facility is certainly not a positive image for our small town. I am encouraging you to please vote. It says no, but they meant vote no on this issue. Thank you. Concerned resident and homeowner. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thanks, Wes. I appreciate you grabbing that and reading that out for us. If that concludes the public comment, looks like. All right, I will close public comment and we can bring us back to council for any more discussion that we have. Joe, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, this is Joe. So I've had about maybe 30 people come by to talk either in my office or elsewhere throughout the city. And the overwhelming majority are very much against this. I only had one person out of that group that was in favor of this. Almost all of these people are homeowners. I think one of them might be a business owner, but they're all residents in Colfax. So that's kind of my feedback from the people that at least I've talked to.
All right, thanks, Joe. Marnie, do you have any other comments on this item before we take it to a vote?
I just want to get some clarification, please. How many jobs are they saying that this is going to create for the Colfax? It is the Colfax people, right? Like not outsiders. Is this specific jobs for Colfax residents?
It was 20 jobs for Colfax residents, or 90% of those are Colfax residents, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the other question is, you know, we've been talking about this fire thing and all that. How is this gonna, will this affect the rates that we're looking at that we want to, you know, for the people paying the fire insurance?
It shouldn't have any effect on that.
Negative, is that gonna have a negative effect on that rate?
No, it shouldn't do anything to our fire, or the neighbors' fire insurance rates, or the community's fire insurance rates. I'm not 100% sure about the neighbors right there, but generally stuff like that's not taken into consideration. Unless anybody else has any other insight to that. No, okay. Any other questions? No, that was it.
No, I
Okay.
don't have any other questions. Yeah, I
Thanks,
think
Barney.
I'm pretty much clear on what needs to happen.
Okay. David?
For reasons stated previously, I'm still in favor of allowing this permit to be issued.
Okay. Thank you. Trinity?
Again, for reasons stated throughout this meeting, I plan to vote yes on allowing this license, and I am open to including stipulations within that yes vote. But at this time, I am comfortable making a motion to approve the license. So when you're ready, Mayor Lohman, you have a motion.
All right, I'll take that motion. Do I got a second?
I second, again with the stipulations.
Okay.
What stipulations would you like to add?
Let me make sure that I understand the motion though. Is it to, because the agenda item says to authorize the city manager to issue a commercial cannabis license cultivation business permit valid for 1 year to Fireworks Farms. Is that the motion?
That is my motion. And I just want to be clear, Mick, that if any council members have any specific, you know, such as making sure again that we notate the control of light pollution, so on and so forth. If any council members would like to add that and amend my motion, I will incorporate that into my motion.
Yeah, those issues really are addressed in the ordinance. And
I know. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm, you know, not jumping the gun here.
Okay, so we have the motion. Good. Thank you.
Have a motion.
Yeah, hey, Mick, thanks for clarifying, and I still second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Councilmember Mendoza,
Aye.
Ackerman,
Aye.
Burris,
Aye.
Petula,
No,
and Mayor Lohman.
No. Sounds like the ayes have it.
3-2 vote, yes.
3-2 vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the direction.
Yep. Okay. Guess that's it for item 9C. Congratulations, Fireworks Farms.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Yep. So we'll move on to item 9D, California Cities for Local Control. Wes, do you want to go ahead and kick off this little bit of discussion for this?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, I can touch on, I know this is an item that council directed staff to bring forward at the February 10th go to the order. What you have before you is a resolution in support of the California Cities for Local Control. There's been a formation of jurisdictions concerned with the state kind of overstepping what they feel is the authority for the zoning and land use for locals on there. So what this resolution would do is it would mean that the city of Colfax is joining the other jurisdictions together to participate in an alliance that can provide another avenue for local governments to share their perspective. I think it's kind of an add-on to what the city already receives, and all the cities within the state from the League of California Cities and their efforts to kind of advocate on the local control as we move forward. I think Charles Anderson with the League of California Cities is wanted to speak tonight. I don't know if he's online or not. It looks like he is. Mr. Mayor, if you're willing to entertain it, we can have Charles speak on the item, and then if you'd like to follow up on it, make additional comments.
Yes, please. Mr. Anderson, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Lohman and council members. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay, great. My name's Charles Anderson. I'm the Regional Public Affairs Manager for the League of California Cities, the Sacramento Valley Division. As your representative for this region of the state, I want to emphasize that the group making this request for a resolution is not affiliated with the League of California Cities. While we don't have a formal position on the resolution's mission and objectives are duplicative to the advocacy efforts already conducted by Cal Cities. As the city is considering adopting this resolution, I would like to highlight that since 1898, more than 120 years, Cal Cities has fought to protect local control. In fact, the League of California Cities mission statement is to expand and protect local control for cities through education and advocacy to enhance the quality of life for all Californians. The resolution before you asks you to support further action to strengthen local democracy, authority, and control as it relates to local zoning and housing issues. These issues are a top priority to Cal Cities, and that's why we've engaged on hundreds of bills related to housing, including defeating draconian measures that would have eroded local control and unfairly penalized cities around the housing element law, while at the same time supported major housing legislation that was then passed that provides cities with new tools and resources. Cal Cities has delivered the following wins for cities in this issue area. Adverse local control bills that Cal Cities through its advocacy efforts recently defeated include SB 50, which would have eroded local control and give new rights to developers. SB 899 would have allowed developers to override local authority. AB 1484 would have limited the ability of cities to impose housing development fees. AB 1568 of 2019 would have linked transportation funding dollars to housing production, and SB 827 of 2018 would have eroded local land use authority around major transit stops and corridors. This next group of bills, which provide cities with new tools and resources, were, through Cal Cities advocacy, passed or funding was secured, and include AB 434, which streamlined the multifamily housing program. There was $300 million that was secured to support local homelessness efforts, $500 million to support infill development projects and infrastructure. And in 2019, $500 million was secured to support the low income tax credit program that helps construct affordable housing. And then in 2017, an estimated $250 million per year was secured for local government housing programs. And then finally, Also in 2017, a Cal City sponsored bill to streamline local planning process and CEQA review was passed. In short, these are only a sample of the bills that the League of California Cities has successfully passed, or that we were able to stop. But all of this is just to let you know that the League of California Cities is continually working to protect local land use and zoning authority, while we're also working to expand the tools available for cities to build the houses they need. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Definitely appreciate your comments. And thank you for being here tonight. I had just a couple of comments. I brought this to the agenda tonight. I definitely don't want to diminish anything that Cal Cities has done. They're a great legislative outreach body, and have definitely had a lot of good wins and done a lot of good things for the municipalities and rural communities. I have been a little concerned with some of the bills that have been coming through and some of the positions that Cal Cities and the league has had. Felt they were kind of leaving out the rural voice and leaving out some of that thought on how some of these things could affect, particularly SB 9. I know that position has changed thanks in part to the work of this organization, California Cities for Local Control. I guess now can open it up. Was there any public comment on this item?
Not that I have.
Okay. And I will, if we get something, we can address it then. Turn it over to council for questions or comments. Joe, do you want to kick it off?
Yep, I have no comments there.
Thank you. Marnie?
I'm having a really hard time with audio, so I can barely hear what you guys were saying.
Nope, sorry.
Yeah. Are you asking for my vote?
No, just if you had any questions or comments on this item.
Well, I didn't really hear what Charles said.
He brought attention to all the great things that that the league has done, and all the wins, and they're basically an overview of their mission and objectives.
Yeah, I don't have any comments at this point.
Okay.
What's going on?
David?
Nope, pretty straightforward. And Charles, thank you for your time and your presentation.
Thank you. Trinity?
Yeah, I'm same page as David. I really feel like it's straightforward. So thank you.
All right. Great. And thank you again, Mr. Anderson, for your time tonight. Definitely appreciate that. And thanks for sticking it out through our meeting.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. So if there's no more questions or comments, can I get a motion to approve our resolution to support California Cities for Local Control?
So moved.
All right. A second. All second.
Oh, I thought I got a second.
Okay. I'll second. And Madam Clerk, could you, I just wanted to say one more thing. I'm sorry. I just want to bring that local control portion full circle and just say that this is also kind of to show how important local control is and what we think on that issue, how important it is to maintain that local control in every aspect we can. Anyway, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Sure. Councilmember Mendoza?
Marnie, you still on? I think you're muted. Yeah, Marnie's muted. She's got her hand raised. Just having audio issues.
Is that an aye? We'll move on to Councilmember Ackerman,
Aye.
Burris,
Aye.
Petula,
Aye.
and Mayor Loman.
Aye. All right. Hopefully we can get Marnie back. Marnie votes aye. She just chimed in on the chat. So it's unanimous. Great. We will now move on to item 10, good of the order. Joe, do you want to start off?
Yep, I have no items for the good of the order this time.
All right, perfect. Give Marnie a minute to get caught back up. David?
Yeah, none at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Marnie, are you able to unmute? Marnie, if you can hear us, can you type in whether or not you have something for the good of the order? Not sure what's going on here on your end or our end. So Trinity, do you have anything for the good of the order tonight?
I do not.
All right. I'm gonna hold my good of the order comments. I've got nothing. I'll give Marnie a second to see if she can chime in on the chat.
Mr. Mayor, I'm asking her right now.
She said she can't hear anything and can't get her mic to unmute. Sorry, Marnie. Did you have anything? Hold on, let me just double check with her real quick. So she's going to try and sign off and sign back in real quick. We got just a minute. Jumped off. You want to see if you can get her back, Wes?
I can hear now.
Oh, there you are.
Oh
Just
my
locked you
gosh.
out. I had Zoom do that to me the other day on another meeting.
Yeah.
Marnie, nobody had any other good of the order comments. Do you have anything for good of the order?
No, I don't have anything for the good of the order. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on my vote. I'm just don't want to leave it like that.
Okay.
On item of the California cities, what did Charles say?
He said that the league has no opinion one way or the other on this ordinance or this resolution, and just kind of highlighted all the good things that the league has done.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, as far as local control, our area, I'm in support of this item.
Yep.
So,
We voted.
yeah, so it's an aye.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks.
Now we got you officially on the record, and nothing for the good of the order.
I mean, I typed it in, but yeah.
Right.
No.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. And no good of the order report.
No, I just want to thank the city for putting the flags where they need to be right now.
Thank you, Marty.
Yep, definitely. All right. Then if we have no other comments or questions, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn.
And okay, it sounded like I had a first and a second there. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Nobody? All right, great. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Yep, good night.
All right, thank you.
Oh, God.